Welcome to Unhinged and On Call. I'm Dr. Chelsea, your resident veterinarian.
And I'm Trish, a registered vet tech who's seen it all. Each week, we're pulling back the curtain on the wild world of veterinary medicine, from late-night emergencies to barnyard drama.
No filters, no fluff, just real stories, real laughs, and maybe a little emotional damage. Thanks for letting us share the madness with you. Well, welcome everyone to Unhinged and On Call. Our guest today is Dr. Ashley Hamilton. She's an equine veterinarian, specializes in racetrack medicine, and kind of splits her time between Florida and Saratoga and sometimes Lexington. So very fun to catch up with you. We met actually in equine practice. She was doing a modified internship in Northern Virginia when I was doing my internship. And we just had this best, one of our prior guests, Dr. Kinney, we had kind of this like best trio of intern mates, which can kind of make or break an internship.
Yeah.
I mean, most everybody gets along. It's just like a really, a time with a lot of struggle when you're working that long of hours and low pay and trying to learn and get your feet underneath you. And so I don't know, I just feel like super lucky that we were able to get to be intern mates together.
That's
and then
so cool.
We just saw each other when I was in Florida. So it's just great to catch up. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Will you tell us a little bit? I know you went to U of F for vet school, but will you tell us just a little bit about like how you knew you wanted to go into vet med, and I don't know, I guess kind of what you're up to these days.
I actually did not know I wanted to go into vet med. So
Okay.
I mean, I grew up with horses and loved horses, and people were always like, oh, you should be a vet.
Okay.
And I worked with some vets when I was younger a little bit, but I wasn't really a science kind of person. Like I was very into literature and English and more of a reading, writing type than biology type. So I actually went to school in Boston my first year at Boston College, and I went for journalism because that's what I wanted to do. And ended up not loving that so much. So I transferred back down to Florida, and my parents basically bribed me and said, you can have your horse down in Florida. So I said, okay. So I came back, still didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up majoring in Spanish. Just because it was kind of a universal degree.
Yeah.
And I almost ended up applying to vet school kind of as a default almost. And I tried to actually get out of it right before.
What?
I wanted to take a year off and like decide what I wanted to do. But my parents were like, no, you should just go. So
like you already had your acceptance, like whatever in March or something, February, March. And then you tried to get out of it?
I wanted to take a year off. I was still thinking, and I was like, maybe I want to go to law school, maybe because I was interested in, politics and international affairs and things like that. So a lot of like varied courses in undergrad and really. And it was kind of a challenge, like, I'll see if I can get into vet school. And then I did. And here I am.
You did?
You're like, but do I want to be a lawyer?
Yeah.
No, it was
travel.
Yeah, it wasn't really like but I've always loved horses. And
well, yeah. Obviously, you're made to do it. She's right. Well, so what's crazy about this? What's blowing my mind is you're like the quintessential equine vet. So,
really? Yeah.
Yeah. Like this blows my mind that you went to journalism in Boston. Cool. Like I had knowing you all this time. Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool.
But undergrad courses for vet school are not fun. I mean, taking chemistry, biology, and physics, and like I said, I was very much like language oriented, so all of that kind of a struggle. But once you get into vet school and you get into actually like doing more practice and animal stuff, okay, like
then it fits.
Medical terminology was probably fun for you at first. You're like, you can put all these together.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's awesome. Very cool.
And then I did an internship at Rood Riddle in Lexington, which kind of got me interested in racehorses to begin with. And then I did, technically they called it a fellowship, but
it was a fellowship.
A way of saying another internship really with Chelsea in Virginia. And from there I ended up going to South Carolina to practice, which was an interesting change of
from Northern Virginia, where it's like all blue bloods and unlimited finances.
Yes.
to South Carolina.
Yeah, totally different.
I never lived in a small town before, and I never really lived in a rural environment before.
Uh-huh.
So it was kind of a big shock to see other parts of the world.
Yeah, that's good to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it really helped, going from Rood Riddle, which again, unlimited funds, then horses, the best of everything.
Right.
And Northern Virginia, very much the same. We worked there to practice with 6 or 7 different vets, a clinic, all the options. And then in South Carolina, it was very much like referral was not an option. Basically, you got $100 to try to figure out how to save this horse. And
Yeah.
so it was a very, different kind of experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how long were you there?
I was there for about 2 years, and then I started on the racetrack.
Okay. Hey.
So I traveled between Florida, New York, and Kentucky now doing that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. She's a badass.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, it's so neat.
There have been a lot of places.
Yeah.
But she does. She takes care of horses you guys as listeners and stuff would recognize probably
Easy.
Really nice
Yeah,
tracks and good
horses.
trainers.
Getting to be derby time, so that's always
Yeah.
Yeah.
crazy time of year for sure.
Yeah.
But I had one this morning. There's always things that you've never seen before, even after all this time. I had a horse this morning that we had to get the ophthalmologist to consult with that has an endotheliitis.
What is that?
A form of
I was like, please.
News to me.
Yeah, a form of immune-mediated keratitis, but it's
Oh.
a layer of the cornea.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it's very difficult to treat.
Yeah, you
and
can't treat.
it's
Yeah.
a poor prognosis, but it amazes me sometimes, how many things there are still that are new to us that we haven't seen before, and there's always more to learn. So
yeah, this isn't a good reference, but I had an ophthalmologist consult. We have a couple in the area that are great. And she had gone out to a horse that I don't even think, I'm not the primary, so I wasn't super involved with. I just do the sports med. And so then I was helping with stuff, and the owner didn't quite know what the implications were of us treating things. And so I was like, I'll just reach out to her and see. And she starts rattling off this long and I don't even know what it is. So I can't, sorry, listeners, I don't know what I wrote it down at the time. It's these long 4 names, and they're named after a human, kind of somebody that had discovered it or what. It just doesn't even make sense. And I was like, what I had to Google and act like I knew what she was talking about. And
interesting.
trying to remember
it's been a while since I've seen that. That is very interesting.
Yeah. I'm I haven't heard these words since vet school. I just say it has a cloudy eye.
Yeah, right. Cloudy eye. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. But it's the information's in there. It's just far down.
Yeah.
That's wild. I wouldn't even think of opto stuff as playing a huge role. I mean, for sure in Florida, but in racehorses, I wouldn't think of it all that commonly, but that's kind of hard.
Yeah, no, we see all sorts of things, but I like it. Sometimes you do get stuck in the routine because we do a lot of things every day, all the time. But now and again, you get something interesting.
Okay. Yeah. What's your favorite kind of case, I guess? Are you upper airway stuff, or what do you
we do a lot of lameness work. We do a lot of airway stuff too. And I think, we do a lot of the dynamic scopes. So we'll put the scope on them while they're grazing or galloping. Those things are always interesting to see. But yeah, we do a lot of lameness work, which is probably my favorite.
Do you always have a dynamic with you?
We do at certain places.
Okay.
So we have a big practice. It's about 10 vets. And so we kind of cover between New Orleans and a lot of places in Kentucky and New York. So we're all spread out a bit.
Wow.
Okay. That's what I would think. It'd be hard to have equipment. Yeah. For 3 of us here in Colorado, we, for the most part, have our own set of equipment. I think the Shockwave was one of the fewest. And then our gastroscope we only have a single. So it's sometimes musical chairs getting equipment.
Yeah.
We do a lot of
scheduling and getting it.
Pairing.
Yeah. That is kind of hard. Okay. Tell us so Ashley and I were recently getting together, and she was telling me just a couple snippets, and I'm sure you can expand on them, but just cases that came up in South Carolina that are just a change in, I don't know.
A little different
Change in life.
mixing it up
Yeah.
a little bit for you.
Like I said, it was and it was the first time, I'd always been kind of in a clinic or, we did a little bit of farm calls, but my job at the clinic in Virginia was mostly in-house. And I always say, like, I got really good at injecting like necks and navicular bursas, but I'd honestly never dealt with like a foot abscess because they don't come into Rood Riddle. They don't, so it was like good at complicated things. And then in South Carolina, you just get sent out into the farms in my little pickup truck and didn't know what I was getting into most of the time.
Yeah.
But one of my early ones, we had a lot of down horses in South Carolina. And I think that's probably similar to a lot of rural practices, but we just had a lot of down horses. So that was not an uncommon call to get. And usually they were difficult to manage. Yeah. We also had a huge population of like very casual horse owners. So, they move out there, they, get a horse or two in the backyard, but don't really know anything about horses and just kind of, this is their first time.
Yeah.
So it's just not uncommon. So I got a call about a down horse. Okay. And it was actually like a normal time of day, which is very unusual. And went out to the farm. The whole family's there. So mom, dad, kids are there. And this is obviously, I think they had 2 horses out there, but this was their first horse. And they were not terribly concerned. They had called into the office and, if you could have someone come out and look, we're not really sure how old this horse is. Someone gave it to us and, but it's been laying down for a while and we're starting to get worried about it. And so, they sent me out there because I was the new person. So I got all the emergency.
You get to, fun calls. Yeah.
So, like I said, the whole family's there. The mom comes out to the truck. And she's like, she's just been laying down for a while and it's hot out. She's, in the sun. And I can see the horse is tied up near the house. The horse is down. And I can tell the horse is dead. As soon as I get have it tied up, I went down
far away.
So its head is kind of tied up. But I mean, its tongue is out of the mouth. Its mouth is open. Like, and again, people not that concerned, just like, they're worried about the horse, but nobody's in a particular panic.
So strange.
And so I was like, okay, we'll go take a look. And she said, her tongue's really, really dry. So they're over there. They had Gatorade, and they were pouring Gatorade into her mouth and on the tongue. And they were just like, her mouth is so dry. We just feel really bad. And I'm thinking, like,
what do I tell these people?
Your Gatorade.
The kids are there. The whole family's there. And nobody's noticed. The horse
is not breathing.
Passed on. So, I mean, I brought my stethoscope out and I was like,
yes,
I'll take a look. And, I listened to the horse. And so I finally just kind of said, I think she's already passed on. I think. And then they start, crying, panicking.
Oh my God.
What do you mean? What happened? And I said, well, I'm not sure. It obviously happened before I got here, but I was like, it looks like she's very old, basically looking at her teeth because they didn't, know anything.
No, yeah.
She's very old. It was probably just her time. And they're like, well, isn't there anything you can do? Like, can we do CPR? Like, isn't there something you can give her? And I was like, no, I think, the kindest thing to do is really just let her go.
Let her go
to greener pastures.
Yeah, since she's already gone, I don't think
she's already gone.
Bible here.
Let her go more.
You went so gentle. You could have been like, more Gatorade. Like,
if only
a fake syringe with air, and you're like, I'm gonna let her go.
Which makes me. One other time, I went out to a rescue place, and that same thing, horse was down in bad condition, and they had been giving it. They had some of their own supplies. So these were educated people. So they had been, I go up and it looks like the horse has hives all over. And I was like, what is that? And they were like, oh, we gave her sub-Q fluids. And they had like given her like literally quarter size of sub-Q fluids, like around.
All over.
Yeah.
On it.
They were like, yeah, we gave her like 500 mils or something of sub-Q
in all those spots?
all over. I was like,
are they cat people?
Right? I was going to say, it probably stemmed from some feline in their history.
Extrapolated it. And I was like, we need like 40 liters here.
Yeah, right. This isn't helping, guys. This is just like torture.
Yeah.
She's already down. You're kicking her.
Like, hives all
Are there hives?
God.
People come up with interesting ways.
It is weird what people, backwoods, like people try, you know? Like, garlic or onions up the butt. Like, I don't know. There's all these weird things.
Up the butt.
Yeah.
Get them
We did a lot of like oral mineral oil.
Okay. A
lot of that. I had a few with the hose up the rectum.
For
colics to try to flush them out and give their own enema. So there's a lot of home remedies that
you're like, and that doesn't work.
Always. Gatorade does.
I did. This is random. Brett had a colic maybe 2 weeks ago. Older horse, and he had already been doing NG fluids. Wasn't a referral candidate. It was like pretty old. But was a large colon impaction, and he had just read a paper about rectal fluids being as better or as good or better than NG fluids, and so he was like, "Oh, I'll just do that." And so he was like giving the horse rectal fluids, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he was gonna have the owner do it. The protocol is every like 2 hours or something.
Every 2 hours.
And this owner like learned and did it for a while. Yeah.
And it went.
Please don't do this at home without your vet.
It did not work. But yeah, then I was like, where's the line? Like, then you get people stick in a hose up there.
Yeah.
And it has to be by gravity, whatever, Q2 hosing. I was just like, I don't like this practice. Like,
I'm going to opt not.
I'm out.
Well, it didn't work, he says, right?
Oh, no, it did not work. It was a huge impaction. So the horse unfortunately didn't do well. But
bummer.
Yeah.
But
it's worth a shot.
And it was too late anyways, but it was just, it was one of those things. And I was like, let's keep this under wraps. Like, in terms of for clients of being like, oh, can you just do rectal fluids then?
Yeah. No. Right. Not a service. We'll continuously. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Vetcs, your go-to for veterinarian developed CBD and wellness products for pets and horses. Founded by veterinary professionals, Vetcs offers science-backed formulas made with premium hemp extracts to support calm behavior, joint health, and overall wellness, whether you're in the clinic or out at the barn. Vetcs is all about helping animals live better naturally. Want to see what they're all about? Head over to vetcs.com to explore their full line of CBD products.
I think the worst case I ever had, which I was proud of myself for diagnosing, I think this was in South Carolina early on. Okay. And I went out to see a horse that was lame behind. And I was a good vet. I did my full physical exam, and the horse had a fever. Okay. And I was like, hey, this isn't quite fit. And honestly, when I went to take its temperature, it's like its rectum was kind of displaced and it had a fever. And so I ended up doing a rectal on the horse, and the horse had a massive rectal abscess. And so I ended up, and so the horse, ended up colicky because it couldn't, defecate normal. And because I was very committed at this time, I ended up rectaling this horse repeatedly in order to evacuate the manure, and then finally abscess ruptured. And I don't think that is a smell that you can ever.
Rectal abscess is like another level.
Rectal abscess is very, it's a specific type of abscess.
It's just as bad as you would think it was.
Was it like summertime? Please tell me it was.
It was.
August, July.
August. Oh God, I cannot. rectal, like just so
That's
everybody
funny.
knows, the rectal OB sleeves don't do shit. Everything
No.
goes on your arm and your shirt, like, and your
You have to
hand, which
shower
you have to use to
immediately
eat.
afterwards. And there's
Yes.
no going on with your day. Like, I mean, it's just.
Oh
you know,
my God.
Wow.
So
It
in
was
some
that
ways, I'm
bad
very
that-
proud of myself for diagnosing
well, that
that.
is an impressive.
Turned very quickly into the worst
Really
case
gross.
I've had by.
Yeah.
You're like, I could do this lameness.
Yeah, it was
Right into it.
the whole exam, like,
Oh,
because the owner was like, "No, she's lame, and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, there's something
You're
going
thinking-
on."
There's
thinking
something
joints
else
I was
happening
right.
here.
Yeah,
Something else is happening
Not
here.
joint injections.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
not
God.
glamorous lameness work.
Wow.
Oh man.
Wow. That's impressive to cause a Highland lameness that big.
Yeah,
I mean, it had
I
to have
was
been
gonna
huge, so yeah.
say, yeah.
Yeah, and I have no idea what possibly caused
Even
that.
started
or-
that. Ooh,
how that
yeah.
happened, but
That's
I run into
wild.
that a lot with horses.
Good. You just got treated with
Yeah.
the greatest cases. There.
Yeah. Just the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, and tell me about your personal safety too. So I always I think a lot of us with mobile equine are like, oh, I'm equipped if there's a human safety issue while I'm at a call,
True.
an emergency in the middle of the night, whatever it is, that like I've got a necropsy knife, I have, scalpels, I've got dorm, ketamine, like I can fucking dart people,
Yeah.
all that. And so you were saying the same thing, except it sounds like in South Carolina, you like walked around with a syringe in your pocket of dorm.
I did. Yes. I mean, it is pretty crazy when you think about what we do, we're
It
in
is
our
crazy.
It is.
Yes.
late 20s, like single girls driving out, and we would go anywhere. If someone had $50, no joke, this was my boss's rule. If they had $50, whether we'd ever seen them before, anything, we would go out in the middle of the night,
Like you could get murdered.
Oh.
You could get murdered for $50.
1,000%. Yeah.
to a random property. You have no idea what you're going into.
Maybe barely like no service. You're going to remote
exactly.
areas, like remote areas.
And I mean, even your
absolutely.
GPS is somewhat limited when you're trying to find places. And, and people would give you advice like, oh, always call someone, tell them where you're going, but it's midnight or
1 a.m. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to wake up your parents.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is before but this is before like Life 360 and these things where
Exactly.
you can track people and you're just
sharing your location or anything.
wasn't a thing. Yeah, sharing your location and stuff. That wasn't a thing.
It wasn't. Yeah.
And I actually had people too tell me, oh, just carry a gun. This is rural South Carolina. It's like, I'm not really comfortable handling a gun. Like, I'm
Sure.
not. So I would always just keep a syringe loaded with Dorm in my pocket. And, it's completely acceptable. Like, you never know when you might need to tranquilize a horse.
It does help. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I felt like I would be a lot more adept at, just stabbing someone with Dorm should happen than trying to pull out a gun and deal with it,
Hitting them in the neck.
Yeah.
I actually got the idea because I had a professor in vet school who told us a story that he was at someone's farm doing a dental, went to sedate the horse, and somehow ended up stabbing himself with the Dorm, injected himself with the Dorm somehow.
Shit.
And I guess he told the owner what had happened and said, call 911, but tell them this is what it is because they can reverse it if they, know what it is. So, he ended up, but he passed out, stop. And I was like, oh.
You're like, that will be my weapon.
Actually, let's do that,
Yeah.
Fortunately, I never had to use it, but
I was going to say, did you ever have any close calls with people or
it's definitely in some
scary wise.
Sketchy situations. Probably the worst one I went to was one of those, middle of the night, unknown clients. Boss says they got $50. You got to go.
Yeah.
Like truly in the middle of nowhere. I pull out, to the farm, have to walk around to the garage. There's a bunch of guys drinking in the garage. And, again, I was like, 26, 27, just walking into this scene. They had a horse in a homemade sling in their garage. And like I said, all these guys are just drunk, partying with this horse standing there. turns out, so anyway, I go to look at her. She had broken her femur at least, among, who knows what other injuries. And it was a yearling. The guys didn't know anything about horses. They were like, oh, we were out riding her earlier and,
Riding
she
her?
fell and then, we had a hard time getting her up. And so, I really said, all we can do is euthanize her. I mean, there's.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, we don't want to do that. And I was like, really, you need to, like, that's, she's in a sling. She couldn't walk. Like, horses can't stay in a sling. Like, this is just cruel at this point.
Yeah.
But of course they don't want to pay for euthanasia, which was also a common thing we ran into. So they were like, oh, our buddy's got a gun. We'll go over there and get the gun and take care of it. I ended up just leaving.
You just have to leave.
Correct.
You just have to leave and hope
before
that
the gun came out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably the worst situation.
It's terrible.
Where I felt like, I don't. And they didn't have a barn or anything. I mean, so you're just like,
weird.
In their garage.
Yeah, you're like, is this even your horse? Like, did you like?
Where did this
horse come from? And why are you riding a yearling? Like, this is your fault.
Well, they had no idea. They were like, oh, we just thought she was small and
weird. Yeah. Oof.
There were,
you see the
definite
things.
Possible dorm situation.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That was
Yep.
Hairier about, but
and you just feel bad because you're like,
we had a number, like a guy that wanted me to hold the horse while he shot it because they didn't pay. And I was like, I don't know how good of a shot you are. I don't know,
Probably not. No.
Like, no, that's not really my responsibility here.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our euthanasia was like $100. It wasn't.
I was gonna say, for the prices you were telling me, like
Colics
and stuff, you were in that, what is it, $100 to $200 range for a colic emergency.
Yeah. I mean,
and I was like, how do you sustain anything? And this this was 14 years ago, so it wasn't like in the 90s. You know what I mean? It wasn't inflation wise, it wasn't that different.
Right.
Very low for. I think it was it was an older practice, and I don't think he'd really updated prices in the past, 20 to 30 years. So
oh my god.
Kind of,
but everything else gets more expensive, like
interesting
cost of living.
Clientele. Yeah. Well, I will say the cost of living there is pretty low.
Yes.
That's some perks.
Yes.
Some perks of
we
that
were
job.
just comparing some real estate pricing with. We have friends in Greenville. And so we were talking about, because they want to move back here. And so we were talking about
big shock.
Real estate comparisons, and they were like, well, it's a big leap, but we want to come back.
We need to get out of here.
Yeah. It's cheap there for a reason.
It's pretty crazy.
But that's why a lot of people end up with horses there, I think, because it's so cheap to acquire.
Because it's just cheap.
A lot of land.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't uncommon. I went to a few places. The horses would just be tied up to a tree in the backyard. Like, that's
no fencing?
There's no fence, no barn. They just live tied up.
Tied to a tree.
That was just
sad.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's definitely, interesting. But like I said, you learn to do a lot because you don't have a lot of options. So
it makes you a better vet at the end of the day.
Yeah, it would make you a better vet.
Savvy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't have to do too much thought anymore.
Right. That's good.
That's
but I think it's, all valuable experience for sure. And
it is.
A lot of respect for people that do that still on a daily and nightly basis, because it is putting yourself at risk, and
that's
both from horses because you don't have good handlers or help, and we have wild Mustangs and unhandled horses and things like that, but the horses are usually easier than the people.
Okay.
Yeah. God. Heard that a few times.
But that's the rural shortage is hard, because it continues that, because nobody can sustain that lifestyle. And so it's like, what is the answer? Like those are not clients or horse owners that are going to be able to haul to a referral center. They're not, like, there's so many like nuances that make it really difficult. So I don't know. And
you feel bad, because I'd go to places, where I had one horse that had gotten bit by a snake, and I mean its whole leg skin had just sloughed off. I mean, it was like an lesson, and they have no money, and we went to hose it, and they said, oh, they cut our water off. So we couldn't pay. And I mean, it's a family with like 4 or 5 kids, living in a trailer. And I mean, these people have a lot bigger problem. They don't even have water to take care of the family, and at the same time, it's like, there's only so much we can do.
Right.
When you don't even have water to host the horse. Obviously, they don't have money for that bill. And you're trying to, do the right thing. But like you said, it's hard to sustain a practice and a business. And,
no kidding.
So I think that's a tough area. There's usually a shortage for a reason.
There is,
for sure.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and that's just, we always go back to with the shortage that is coming in, right? With the equine vets, is like horses are a luxury, but like, what do you do with the ones that are already out there? And, people like are probably emotionally tied to them, but like you said, it's, not the primary thing in the family.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we did a fair number of, voluntary euthanasias of
Did you?
people with older horses or, going into the winter and, they to keep them. Nobody wants them. I mean, there's no place for them to go. And really it's, it is, and it's hard, but it truly is the kindest thing.
That is, yes.
Yeah, that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah. But, compared to working at Rood Riddle with $1 million thoroughbreds that have everything at their disposal, but it's hard. I got
night and day.
It starts to wear on you. I mean, we did at least 5 or 6 euthanasias on a normal week. Just it was a lot.
Oh God. Okay.
Between
that would be hard.
If you're colics, with no referral options.
Yeah, that's true.
That's it.
Yeah, if you can't refer, that's true. You'd be putting down a lot more. Huh. Wild.
That was very different side of practice.
Wow. Yeah. Well, geez. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, though. That's important to talk about, because there's a lot of people in the trenches doing it now.
Yeah. More support to them.
Yeah. I know.
It's a special kind of individual for sure.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And people are not always grateful for your help either. So
that's true.
Yeah. Manage the personalities of the client that goes with it too, which can go one way or the other. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. That would be crazy.
Man.
What were your other, I guess you weren't necessarily fun. Do you want to talk about the sheep?
Oh, I forgot you guys were.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of euthanasia.
That's been kind of dark, but that's okay. I mean, that's part of vet med. And
the hardest things I've had were euthanasias. And typically you think, even as a young vet, you're like, this is something I can do. Surely I can competently go out and, euthanize an animal. And I remember there was one in Virginia. I guess it was our other intern mate, Aaron, that had gone out. And it was this beautiful farm. It was this very wealthy lady, and she took in one of every species of rescue animal, basically. But they lived on, the nicest farm, had everything, and one of those eccentric older ladies,
Yeah.
Beautiful house and everything. So we go out there as interns.
Is this the sheep that we bone scanned?
I don't know.
No, it was a different one. We had this really from this lady, this special sheep.
Yeah.
That got a bone scan. I don't know that. I don't remember the protocol, how much technesium we would have used, but just the simple fact that it got a bone scan.
That it got a bone scan.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very fancy sheep.
Dang.
Yeah.
They were sheep.
Pet sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So same place, same level, care and concern about this. And I honestly don't remember what was wrong with this sheep that we had to go out and euthanize it. But it was, very sick, old.
Yes. Okay.
She didn't want to see it. So fortunately, she stayed outside the barn. But I just remember we had the hardest time. I don't have any sheep experience. It's not something you really get hands-on experience.
No.
I would
right.
We don't really see sheep.
You wouldn't even have sheep. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not something, but you figure surely we can euthanize.
Yeah.
How could that be? So we just struggled to get a vein, and this poor I mean, the sheep was not moving. It wasn't struggling. It was, but couldn't get a vein on the sheep. And we ended up doing an intracardiac stick to euthanize the sheep because, the ladies outside, we've been in there for, 10 minutes at this point. She's wondering what's going on. We're like trying to think of ways that we can euthanize this poor sheep.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that's your option.
It worked.
Right? Like,
it
worked and you got it done, and that's what's important.
Creative, and I've learned how to euthanize a cat one time.
The cats are,
Yeah.
Did you do a kidney, or was that before the kidney?
I ended up doing, based on a very scientific Google search, intraperitoneal.
Oh, yeah.
It actually went very well, very peaceful, very easy.
Yeah.
So I think we are lucky these days. You can look up pretty much anything.
That is true.
Now and figure out how to do something.
Get it done. Get it done.
I
A lot of ways to euthanize.
In some fashion. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that would be much smoother, I think, with cats, because we did mobile ambulatory in Wisconsin, and with cats, like hitting an older cat's veins that's already dehydrated. Like, I can't even hit a normal cat's vein.
No.
Me neither.
and it not like fly off the handle, and then sedate it and drop the blood pressure more, all the things. So I just remember having such anxiety about like at-home euthanasias for cats. So then I started a 50-pound limit or higher, because then I knew I could hit the vein. Because I had to do all these intracardiac sticks, and this was it was before like the kidney thing was more well known, probably, or I probably could have figured out peritoneal, but that was what like the mentors at the time were like, oh, they're just the heart's, you can feel it, and so just hit the heart, and once you had sedation on board, and so it was still like an approved means of doing it.
Yeah.
But it just like, oh my gosh, that would make me crazy, because you're like sometimes you're in front of the family, and you're like,
that's what I was just gonna say, that there's
right
people watching,
like,
and they're like waiting, and they're already sad, and it's
that is a talent to be able to, like,
for sure,
go in different species, like, and end their lives peacefully,
and like,
make it look seamless,
Yeah.
It is like on the inside you're freaking out, and you're just like, fuck, I can't hit a vein.
No.
Well, and I
go back to horse jugulars.
I had one, I remember in South Carolina, middle of the night, and my mom was actually visiting, so she came along with me. And of course, it's the middle of the night. We drive out to the middle of nowhere. No one has any lights. The horse is down, another down horse, but it's down on like the side of a muddy hill.
Oh, God.
So we're literally, sliding.
Covered
My
in
mom,
mud.
horse person, but she's a marriage and family therapist. She's a psychologist. She works in a nice office.
Yeah,
I'm
very clean.
Middle of the
down
night,
mud
they're like,
hills
hey, let's
normally.
go on a little field trip here. So, we slide, literally sliding down the muddy hills, the horse, another very old horse. And I said, there's no way we're going to be able to get this horse up. And it had happened a few times, and it was one of those where we're getting close to winter again. And anyway, we get to the point where we're probably just best putting this horse down. And so the lady was like, okay, but we have to wait for my daughter to get here. So again, it's like, she lives somewhere else. So it's 1 a.m. It takes her like 45 minutes.
Oh.
And then she gets there, immediately gets hysterical, and she's like, do whatever, but I can't be here. Has to go sit in the car. And I'm like,
we just
waited
45
minutes
for you to be here.
Of course. Just to be like, I have to go sit in the car. Okay.
Oh my God.
So, I gave her, our normal, I used to give 120 cc's of euthanasia just to be thorough. And I mean, this horse was, in bad shape. So I used to think, now I know better, but I used to think, okay, surely this will be easy.
Enough.
Yeah. And the horse just keeps breathing. And just keeps breathing. And I'm like, Okay, so I end up, I've got to climb back up this muddy hill to go back to my truck to get more euthanasia, to come back down. And, I ended up giving her like nearly a bottle of euthanasia.
Oh my gosh.
Just would not die.
What is
And it's hard. Owners were like, oh, I thought she was so sick. And,
yeah,
now I've actually had that experience multiple times where they just have such low perfusion that it is actually, the euthanasia doesn't go anywhere because they have such poor circulation at that point.
Yes.
So it's not a reflection of
of their resilience and strength.
They were like, she's still fighting.
Yeah, they're not fighting. They just can't. Can't
survive. Right. If anything, shows how bad they are.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But it is hard to explain in that moment where you're just like
what's
having to
covered in mud. 1 a.m. like those factors too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like sitting in the dark, and you'd think she was gone. She'd take another big breath and start breathing.
What'd your mom say when you got back in the truck to leave? Was she like, wow,
I'm so glad I made you do vet school?
She was like, is this what you do all the time?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
is this normal for you?
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
It is. Normal experience. Like, actually, these people were very nice. So
yeah, you're like, this is different because it was actually better than normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Has she gone with you since? Like now that you've been in Racetrack?
She's come to visit a couple at the racetrack, and obviously it's a different experience.
Okay, good. So she knows you're not still like walking away.
Oh, you saw this horse on TV.
Yes. Okay. She's like, okay, we got somewhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We made it up the mud hill.
We've progressed a bit. But yeah, I think if my dad had known all the kind of stuff that I did, would have been very comfortable with some of the situations that I would now.
There's some, and you're just trying to do your job. Like you just need a job leaving internship and vet school and, all the things. You need a job. So but I'm glad you're in a much better place now.
Yeah. And it was an interesting mix because the one kind of city there, they had some very expensive hunter jumpers. They had some off the track, like training centers for thoroughbreds. So, I was like, oh, this is a good mix of, nice show horses. But obviously as the new vet there,
you get the yes
on the outskirts of town.
Yeah, they all default to you.
Yeah.
Goodness, that's true.
Man. That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
It's been,
oh my gosh.
Even if we were talking about dark things, it's been a pleasure.
No, it was great. Thank you so much.
It's a big part of it. So,
Yeah.
So, it was great having you. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you.
You too.
All right. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We would really love to have you as a guest on our podcast. So if you have any fun stories to share with us or would like to be a guest, we have a form on our website, so unhingedandOnCall.com. And you just click on the little link there and you can fill out a little bit about your story and yourself, and then we would get back to you. Or you can just email us to chat@unhingedandOnCall.com and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and we would love to have you as a guest.
We also are looking for ratings. So essentially on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can rate and review our show. And that would be super helpful in just getting kind of into the algorithm. And then additionally, we are on YouTube. So if you ever want to watch videos, we put more content, like visual content, so pictures, videos, things like that, into the episodes. So we'd love to have you follow or subscribe our channels on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe so you get all the latest updates. Unhinged and On Call isn't just a podcast. It's a lifeline for every veterinary professional barely holding it together with vet wrap and caffeine. Somewhere out there, another tech, vet or assistant, is deep in the same chaos, dodging poop, managing meltdowns, and wondering if they're the only one unraveling. You're not. Whether you're laughing, crying, or rage cleaning your truck, you've got a whole tribe behind you. You're unhinged, but never alone.